to another powerful episode of Pleasure Principles, the podcast where science, spirit, and sensuality meet to challenge how we see life, love, and ourselves. I'm your host Avik, and today we have someone truly extraordinary with us. So please welcome Dr. Eleanor Haspel-Portner. So welcome to the show, Doctor.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here.
Amazing. So, dear listeners, before we delve deep into the discussion, I'd quickly love to introduce you, Dr. Eleanor. So, dear listeners, she is a pioneer in the scientific spirituality, like with over 50 years of work bridging the psychology, quantum energy science, and ancient wisdom. And she has guided more than 45,000 people through her groundbreaking noble energy maps. So her work helps us move beyond the surface level personality tools and into the deeper realms of purpose, alignment, and awakening. Today, we will be exploring the four walls, a framework that eliminates how our physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual selves interconnect to shape not only who we are, but how we experience pleasure, balance, and meaning in our lives. So I'll not take much of your time, dear listeners. Let's get started. Welcome to the show again.
Thank you.
Amazing. So, so Dr. Elena, I mean, just to start with the basics, what exactly are the four walls? I mean, how do they give us a more complete picture of human experience, if you can share?
We live in multiple dimensions, and everyone in the audience will recognize that because we all know that when we go to sleep and we dream, we're in a different state of consciousness than when we're awake. What I've found in more than 50 years of clinical experience is that all the people who came to me for help came because they didn't feel validated at the core of who they were. They weren't listened to at that
Mm,
core level of inner alignment.
mm,
That is the spiritual sense, the divine connection to who we really are. So, in the Kabbalistic Tree of Life, there is the model of four worlds. And
mm,
Jung talked about four worlds. Um, it's been ancient knowledge, but it hasn't found its way yet into mainstream psychology. So when I was working with the human design chart and testing it scientifically, what I found was that the body map factored into four factors: the mental waking world, the spiritual archetypal world, the emotional angelic world, and the physical biological world. Now, the two worlds that are part of consciousness and
mm,
part of our daily living, and what most people are aware of, is the mental waking world, the world we're socialized into, the what we learn in school, we learn how to behave, how to make our manners, all of that stuff, how to make money,
mm,
how to be successful. But it's also tied in to our physical chemistry. So we all know and have heard about a lie detector test. The lie detector test is measuring physiologic responses beneath the surface of consciousness, but being
mm,
triggered by the mental waking world. So those two worlds tend to predominate in Western and even now in Eastern culture. Where we really get our gratification and our sense of connection with people, we often talk about meeting our soulmate.
mm,
So everyone knows that there's more to who they are than meets
yeah.
the eye. And the spiritual world is where we connect when we dream and when we're in deep, deep sleep. And that world of spirit is connected more to the splenic intuitive energy than to the emotional energy. Right now, August 28th, we have a cosmic configuration of planets, the Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto making a triangle, a trine. And that means that everyone in the universe is being impacted by this cosmic energy that is activating people emotionally to wake up to truth, to wake up to who they really are. We have finally entered the Aquarian age. And that means tune into yourself, tune into what works for you. One of my favorite statements is when you know what you know and no one can tell you you don't know, you're not selfish, you're not stubborn, you are aligned. Do not compromise. So living from who you really are, what your values are at the core of your being, that's what abundance, happiness, and love are all about.
Mm.
Does that answer it?
Exactly. Exactly, I'd say. Yeah. And um okay, so uh like, do most people tend to live more than, I mean, more from one world, like say the mental or the physical, like while neglecting others? I mean,
Yes, you're right on. And I have a book coming out on the 16th of September called Living from Soul. And it's a map of the authentic self, validated on 45,000 cases. And it's in it is a four-world assessment that's also available from my website, Noble Energy Wellness. And people do tend to live in different balances. I tend to make my choices more from spirit, always have. But I always saw energy and related to energy. Some people are so out of touch with their core values or what really gratifies them that they may be working a 9 to 5 job, they may be in the wrong relationship, they may not be doing something they really love, and they feel stuck in the mental waking world. And it may make them feel emotionally reactive. They may get angry. They may have a short fuse. They may be reactive. And where we are cosmically right now is a warning to people to not be emotionally reactive, to take and transform emotional reactions into compassion and love for yourself and for others you relate to, because everyone is being affected by these really strong energies that are asking people to wake up to their divinity, to wake up to how manifestation actually works. And what I know from my work scientifically and clinically is that the manifestation process takes 3 months, not 1 month, not immediate, but we get to self-correct. So set your goals and set them considering the four worlds. Ask yourself, am I going in the right direction for me? Not a direction somebody wants me to go in, but a direction that is really aligned with who I am and what I value and where I want to be in my life. And make sure your goals take care of self care physically, eat right, sleep long enough, be with people whose values align with yours. And if they don't, have courage. You know, a beautiful movie is The Wizard of Oz because the characters in there are on a quest to get home, home to the self, home to where you feel at ease, home to where you feel whole. And each of the characters are looking for a world that they feel they're missing: courage, heart, um, home, or um, if the love rather than the fear.
Mm, agree. Wow. Hmm. Amazing. I mean, that's really great part. I mean, it's because I think many of us unconsciously live, I would say, imbalanced, overthinking, overworking, or disconnecting from the body, but yet wonder like why uh, pleasure feels out of reach. So, uh,
Mhm.
um, that's a thing, definitely.
Yes, you're speaking very well about it. And most
Mm,
people wonder when they eat the wrong things, or they don't exercise, or they stay up too late. I know I have many patients who
mm,
tell me that they get busy in the evening and they don't get enough sleep, or they are addicted to a television show and they don't take care of themselves. I highly recommend that everyone, all the listeners, take the time to meditate every day. Take the time to go into a space where you can be inside yourself and experience peace, experience the I that is I.
mm,
Not the I you're supposed to be, but the I that feels real to you, that feels whole to you, and that connects you to something beyond yourself.
mm. Wow, it's lovely. Oh, and wow, that's amazing. I mean, I was just listening, and I mean, it's really, really important. And dear listeners, I believe you're also feeling that same. I mean, what we're discussing, and so Dr. Elena, like the four walls also tie into the ancient wisdom traditions like Kabbalah and human design. Um, So, how do you weave those teachings with the modern neuroscience and psychology without losing the credibility with either side?
Can you make yours sound a little bit louder? Because there's some sound outside that's interfering.
Oh, okay, okay. Is it better now?
A little bit more.
Oh, okay, okay. This is
Yes. Now ask your question again.
yeah, yeah. I'm saying like the four worlds also tie with the ancient wisdoms like human design, Kabbalah. So, how do you weave those teachings with psychology and modern neuroscience without
Well,
losing the
the human design system is an incomplete system. And I did the research on the human design system and I tested matched samples, 5 matched samples, 30,000 cases. And what I found was the body graph held, but the human design only looks at the mental waking world. So, for example, on this cosmic configuration happening tomorrow, we can see in the human design that many people are going to be emotionally reactive. But in my expanded scientifically validated noble energy map system, which considers all four worlds, we can see that in the spiritual world, everyone can transform emotional reactions into compassion and love. That is emotional intelligence and creative intelligence. When we take the mental waking world and we recognize that it is not who we are, that we're so much more. And in Noble Energy Maps and the research I did on human design and Noble Energy Maps, I was able to get, when I did a factor analysis, which looks at which centers have which components in common, I was able to find that the centers in the body map um, clustered in four worlds. So the expanded human design into noble energy maps is an accurate system that allows me to read how people manifest in the four worlds and how they balance them and how they pick up energy. So many people are energy sensitive. For example, my husband is an MD, a medical doctor. And early on, before we had human design, before we had noble energy maps, he'd come in from seeing a patient, and I'd look at him and I'd say, "Who did you see today? This isn't you." And we would track back. And he's a physical empath. In his human design chart, he has a completely open splenic center. And he picks up energy. So he would pick up in his body what his patients were feeling. And that's how he was such a good diagnostician. But he didn't know he was picking it up. And he'd come in at home at night and he'd have a headache or a stomach ache. It wasn't his. So I encourage all the listeners to begin to pay attention. Is this you? Or are you sensing the energy of the people around you? And are you picking up what they feel? And can you then separate what is your emotion from what's their emotion? And can you then rebalance so that you can listen to who they are and be present with them rather than projecting what you imagine they're feeling onto them?
Mhm. True. Exactly true. Yeah. Ah, that's amazing. Wow. And like uh I mean I have to say this thing that I love that because it shows that bridging walls is not just theoretical and something you had to embody by standing in the fire of both critic and curiosity. So, uh, have you ever faced skepticism from the scientists or maybe resistance from spiritual communities?
Repeat the question.
Have you ever faced skepticism from scientists or resistance from spiritual communities?
Yes. Um, my work is very innovative and scientific, and the human design community, especially, has limited themselves to a single formulaic way of looking at people
Mm.
and labeling people. It's similar to the field of psychology, where as a clinician, you're taught to use the diagnostic manual and put labels on people. I was always reluctant to do that because I didn't think they were accurate. And I thought that when we label people, we put them in a box and they begin to think about themselves that way. And that's not who we are. So my work is innovative and it's bringing awareness. And I think it's especially important for children and in
Mm,
parenting because if we socialize children into the mental waking world and we don't take into account whether what we're telling them aligns with them energetically, we may be closing them off to their true divine nature. And the fact that 99% of the population, when we look at their noble energy map and how they are at 3 months of age, which is when a baby begins to exercise choice and is really developed from being a neonate to being a baby and
yeah.
having a will of their own. At 3 months of age, every person has everything they need to manifest their full potential. That's
Mm,
my biggest message is that at 3 months of age, all four worlds have come together inside of us as humans. And as they come together, the task as a parent, and I have two children who I did raise to be spiritually aligned and to recognize that they see energy, they feel energy, and they can be compassionate without losing themselves. But if we live only in the mental waking world, then we're not in touch with ourselves. And then we are reactive because we want others to recognize us.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Great. And also like for someone listening right now who feels stuck, maybe overwhelmed by stress or longing for purpose, where would you suggest they begin explore the four walls in their own life?
Um, they can go to my website, nobleenergywellness.com,
Mhm.
and there is a four world assessment on there. And there should also be a link to a course that I designed, self paced, called Step Over the Threshold, which introduces the four worlds over a 5 day period. So one day is the spiritual, next they move to physical, next they move to emotional, and last they move to mental and then integrated. So the first key question for all of the listeners, are you headed in the right direction for who you are and what you want your life to be? If you are, great. You can also go on my website and book a reading with me or a short session to get some direction. I like to make myself available and I like to connect with people and help my students move into living in the four worlds and understanding that communication is very specific for each world. The communication on a spiritual level includes questions like, am I headed in the right direction? And when I feel emotional, what do I know about emotions now? So being open to recognizing your spiritual core and beginning to attend to how much self care you're taking of your body. Because if your body is not taken care of, and if you don't feel healthy, you
Yeah.
cannot function optimally.
Mm, exactly. Wow. Wow. Amazing. So, dear listeners, Thank you so much, Dr. Elena. Thank you so much for such a rich and illuminating conversation. And I have to say that you have shown us that pleasure, purpose, alignment are not separate pursuits, but they are interconnected expressions of the four worlds. So, for everyone who is listening, let this episode be an invitation. Notice like which world you have been overemphasizing and where you might invite more balance. So, whether it's listening to your body, quieting your mind, deepening your spirit, or opening your heart, every step towards alignment brings you closer to a life you truly love. So, if this conversation resonated with you, make sure to connect with Dr. Eleanor and explore her noble energy maps. And remember that the greatest pleasure principle is living as your fullest, most radiant self. And I'll put all the links into the show notes, dear listeners, for your easy reference so that you can easily reach out to Dr. Eleanor. And with this hope, until next time, I'm your host Avik, and this has been Pleasure Principles, where we learn, unlearn, and rediscovered what it means to truly thrive. So, thank you so much.
Thank you.